Hey guys, today I have for you the Mazda 3. This car was out in 2019. I've not reviewed it yet, so this is an opportunity to do so. I'm at a Mazda Media Driving Day here in Leamington Spa, and we've got the opportunity to try a few cars. There's two that I haven't done before, and this one, the Mazda 3. I tell you what, it's one of the best looking hatchbacks out there. I love that pinch face at the front and the sculpted sides. I'll just have a little bit of a walk around. This is not a normal review because I'm at a driving day, so I've got less time to do these. So I'm going to just take a little bit of a walk around, and then of course we'll take it for an all-important drive. Before I do that, make sure you're subscribing to YouTube channel, Brown Car Guy. Make sure you're following me on browncarguy.com and all social media channels. It search my hashtag, which of course is hashtag Brown Car Guy. And if you enjoy my content, then maybe you can support it over at patreon.com/Brown Car Guy. Cool, let's get into this. So check it out, this is the Mazda 3. I'll put all the specs and stuff on the screen because, as I said, I'm at a media driving event, so I haven't got enough time to go through everything, but I'll put all the specs on the screen. I'll just give you a quick walk around. Like I said, I think it's one of the sleekest, best looking hatchbacks, family hatchbacks. Over there you can see an RX-3 in the background. That's part of the activities here, but hopefully maybe bring you a review of that at some future date. Let me know if you're interested in it. So here we go, let's have a look at this space in the back. Again, very signature styling on these rear tail lights, and the button for this is just under here. It's not powered, clearly. e-Skyactiv is the engine. So over here you have a pretty deep boot. Actually, it's quite a bit of a lip to get stuff over, but having said that, you then got a very, very deep amount of space. Underneath there you've got your tool kit. I think that's a Bose sound system, so I guess there's a tire repair kit on this car. Split folding rear seats, and you've got a light on this side, and that's pretty much it. What else do you need? So the handle is up here. You can actually, interestingly, lock it as well from back here. So let's close that. What we'll do now is we'll take a seat inside. Here we go, inside the rear. Let's see what it's like back here. Okay, the roof is a little bit low, as you notice. Look at the sloping roof. So don't forget, I am 6'2" with long legs. I've set the driving seat for my driving position, and so having said that, I mean, from that point of view, that's not too bad. I mean, there is plenty of room there. I am not cramped at all. There's even a little bit of wiggle room for my feet down there. No problem with the shins. That's not an issue. Headroom, I would say, is a bit tight. So the only thing I'm going to say is the headroom is a bit tight for me. And you can see that the way that the roof slopes down, you can very much see the angle of that and why that's encroaching on headroom. It's a little bit dark back here as well because the C-pillars are massive and they come in very tightly. They sort of taper into the car and make that rear window much smaller. So that also is affecting the amount of light that's getting into the back, as opposed to the front, which feels quite airy, and it's got the sunroof as well. But other than that, it is quite comfortable back here. What do you have? You have ISOFIX Chelsea anchor points, of course. You have a center armrest with two cup holders, door pockets. Nothing there, no vents, no USBs, but again, nice sort of finishing and stuff like that. The quality is very, very good in this car, both front and back, but otherwise that's pretty much all there is to it. So now it's time to get into the front and see what that's like. Oh yes, now this is so much better in here in the front, and again, Bose sound system, as we actually figured out from what we saw in the boot anyway. Nicely finished. Again, the quality, the way that this finish is very, very smooth. It's perfectly aligned. A bit of aluminium style finishing there. Very nicely done. Nice quality, nice fit, nice finish. The seats are very comfortable. Again, up here I've got no issue with headroom, plenty of elbow room, good all round. I still feel like I'm sitting quite low in the car. So it has a sporty sort of attitude about the way that you fit into the car. So you're sort of sitting in the car rather than on the car, which I guess it is a hatchback, but with this quite high waistline on the door, but also feeling that you're sitting into it, and these almost sporty kind of balti seats, if you like, bucket seats, if you like. So it's quite good. So let's turn it on. So let's see if I can show you what that looks like. This is a manual. The keys are lying in there at the moment. That's what they are. What have you got here? You've got cup holders up front. There's a screen. There's a screen. Look at, I think the center one is the digital. So let's see what happens when you start it up. There you go. So yep, it is in fact digital, and so it gives you the speedometer, but it's entirely digital, but it looks like an analog dial. Let me turn down the volume. There you go. Control is down there. So you've got a big screen there. This apparently is new for this generation. It's model 21 year Mazda. They've updated stuff like that. I like the way that's styled. That's a bit different, isn't it? The way that comes out into the door line almost. And it feels like there's a full vent. There isn't. That's blacked out. But it's just a styling thing, blanked out I should say. But that's a styling thing. Gives it a sensation of being fully vented all the way across. Feels a little bit like Mazdas of old, actually. It's kind of just put me in mind of it. I'm not sure why, but it just kind of does. Decent sized glove box, a nice little lip down here, a little bit of a tray. I'm sure you'd be tempted to put stuff in there. Although it's feeling quite hot on this slightly sunny day today. Full climate control down there. Manual gearbox on this one. This is basically what controls that. I don't know if that is touchscreen. It's not touchscreen, so that's not touchscreen. Same like the CX30 that we did reviewed earlier. The review is on this channel. Maybe I'll put a link up here. So volume control, and this is similar to that one actually. To be honest, a lot of this feels familiar in that sense. And I guess there's a USB stick down there, or a plug down there, but also one down there. So it does feel very similar to that car in that sense. So again, lots of controls on the steering, and I'm sure that center screen is configurable and gives you X amounts of different bits of information. So I think the main thing to do now is to actually take it for a drive and see what it's like on the go. Okay, wow. So we are now on the move in the Mazda 3, and following on from my thoughts of just sitting in the car and saying that it has a very sporty sensation of actually sitting in the car and sitting quite low in the car, just moving off there for the first time, literally out of the venue, and giving it some acceleration. It's got sporty tendencies. It's definitely got sporty tendencies. It wants to be a hot hatch, is what it wants to be. Technically, it's not. So straight away, you get the sense of this car, being a little bit more than your average, normal, genial hatchback, if you like. Something even in the way that the gears feel. I mean, the throw is quite short and satisfyingly notchy, very well defined. And you just want to be changing the gears all day long. That's what it feels like, And then you've got the positioning of the pedals, which again, perfectly positioned for heel and towing in this car. Very, very close together. And you just go, yeah, that's quite easy to do in this car. You take the sensation of sitting in an SUV, or even a compact SUV or a crossover, and opposite that. It's like that. So you literally feel like, it doesn't feel, weirdly, it doesn't feel that much different from how I felt sitting in the MX-5. MX-5 was obviously a little bit lower than this, but still, this feels quite low. It feels like I'm sitting something quite sporty and laid back. That's the immediate sensation that you get, and it has to be deliberately engineered. It has to be, because there are ways that these things are designed, and clearly there has been an emphasis on how the people in the front of the car are going to feel sitting at the front, and sitting behind the wheel particularly. The brakes are very good, very linear, very smooth, nothing bitey, nothing catchy. There's nothing grabby. There's no surprises with the car. Admittedly, when I say that it's sporty, that's not to say that straight away it's very harsh, or it's very rigid, or it's very firm. It does feel like a normal hatchback. It feels very easy to drive. The clutch is light. The take-up is very easy. The biting point is very easy to find. It's got stop-start, so it's switched off at the moment. Visibility at the front is not an issue. Good all round generally. Mirrors are good, no problem at all. Again, if you're coming from an SUV, you may feel that you're sitting a bit too low, but then of course you have the CX30, which I just recently reviewed, which is basically the SUV version of this car. But as it is, I think that if you're moving up from a sports car or a sporty hatchback, and you want maybe something a little bit more practical, reliable, durable, but still giving you that same kind of sensation, then I don't think you'll be disappointed in this car. Steering is a good size. It feels quite good to hold. The way that everything is configured is well, it's just been done. The only thing is, like this, again, the touchscreen, as I said in the 630, I don't know why that's not. I know it's a bit far to reach even for my long arms, But somehow I think it would be useful for it to be touchscreen, and of course they could actually move it closer towards you if they wanted to. So the steering is very, very light. There isn't a lot of information coming back through the steering, but having said that, it's quite responsive. And just going around that corner earlier just now, you do get a sense that the car is very well settled and very well composed. You know, it's not wallowing, or it's not floating, or it's not moving around too much. It's just following your inputs very faithfully, and executing your requests and demands pretty accurately, I would say. We are in fourth gear, and a bit like the Mazda MX-5, it seems the third gear and fourth gear are best when you're doing stuff like this. Plenty of torque available, good amount of feedback from the throttle when you need it to. And again, even in fourth gear, when you accelerate just a little bit, it's there. It's not an issue. So that's pretty good. So that's where it does its best work. The engines are very good. They're quiet though. It's very quiet. I wouldn't say it's got a sporty roar, at least not at normal revs. So let's rev it up a little bit and see how that responds. There's a little bit of a note to it. Oh, okay, so it's a little bit of understeer just apparent there around that roundabout. A very consistent kind of drone about the engine. Not a nasty drone, a nice kind of drone, but rhythmic drone if you like. But quite consistent, not intrusive or anything like that. Again, just very faithful in how it's following your commands. And I think in that sense, it's quite a reassuring car. So it's one of the things that, you know, you do want. Now, whether or not it continues to be something that's sporty, I would hesitate to say at this point. But having said that, I mean, you know, with 184 brake horsepower, it's got more than enough performance for something of this size and this nature to keep you well happy and satisfied in terms of the get-go of the car. So again, even in fourth is actually not a bad gear for this car. I can go up into fifth and it starts to, you start to lose a little bit in terms of pulling away. Fourth is where it really does its best work on a road like this. The ride again is very well settled. I mean, you know, you can hear a little bit of bump thump. You can just about feel the sort of undulations and the little potholes and things like that. But honestly, none of it is an issue. None of it is jarring. None of it is causing any consternation or anything like that of any kind. And generally, the body control is very smooth. It's maintaining its posture. It's maintaining its position. Not causing any concern whatsoever. Wow, the gear change is really good for this car. They really know how to get that right. You know, it used to be that you had BMW and Honda amongst the best in terms of gear changes, but yeah, Mazda seem to know how to do this very well indeed. It's got the right kind of tactile sensation to it. Very sweet. And again, you know, the steering a little bit light. I would like to see a little bit more heft and weight to the steering wheel, but it's reasonably accurate and responsive. That's not an issue. And again, when it comes to its composure, so we're just coming up to a bend at about 50 and going around it, and it's, you know, there's no detectable lean at all, really. It's very well settled. It's very planted, as you'd expect it to be. It pulls very well, even now. Now that we're at the higher revs, we're in fourth gear again. Best work in fourth gear. Pulling. I'm not talking sports car here. I'm not talking like, you know, there's a ton of torque happening or anything like that, but enough to keep you very, very satisfied and engaged indeed. And again, you know, heel in towing adds an extra element of enjoyment and satisfaction to this car. The ability to just accelerate out of a corner, nice. It would be interesting to see what this car is like about town, but based on the experience of the car so far, I can imagine that actually it's the right sort of size, right sort of compact, without the only proviso being the visibility out the rear, because it's a little bit tight because of the nature of those C-pillars and the way that they come in and reduce the width of the rear window. And also looking over your shoulder, it's a little bit dark in that region over there. So the only thing is, like, it's one of those cars where you're thankful for the reversing camera. That's quite handy in the car and genuinely useful. But other than that, the size and the fact that you can so easily place it, although the bonnet just kind of dips out of sight, it goes, because it is quite sleek at the front, so it just kind of goes just straight down and dips out of sight. But nonetheless, I think you've got a pretty good idea of where the extremities of the car are, and that seems to work quite well. So not really an issue at all. So I think that around town, this car would work really well. That road is particularly rough, and so you probably heard and saw a little bit of a disturbance in my attitude there, just as some of that was starting to transmit into the cabin. But overall, I would still say that it was not uncomfortable. It was still comfortable. It was just very nicely damped and very well, again, like a bunch of red lines in the tarmac to slow you down. And again, it transmits, but it doesn't upset, it doesn't jar or anything like that. It's telling me to go up into 5th and 6th, but weirdly I tend to keep it in 4th. I just find that it's doing its best work in 4th. It's a very flexible gear. You can do so much with 4th. I've gone up into 5th. I'm coming back down into 4th now, back into 3rd. But it's a car that is very satisfying to drive, reasonably engaging to drive. I could do with a little bit more feedback and feel and heft to the steering, but other than that, reasonably satisfying to drive. The gear change, the ride, and the poise of the car and the handling is very, very good. There's a hint of understeer when you really start to throw it around the roundabouts, the tight corners, but mostly it's very composed and solid, and it's quite neutral in its attitude. I'll tell you what, there is a little bit of torque steer in this car and the way that it responds, particularly when you're in the lower gear and you put power. You certainly do feel that. So that much information certainly is coming through the steering, that's for sure. But and in that sense, it reminds me, it puts me in mind back to the CX-30, its sibling if you like, and there was something I remember saying about that car, in that it still felt a little old school to me in the way that the car feels from behind the steering wheel. The sort of passions and sensations that you have in the car, you get that sense of, despite the fact that it is a modern car, thoroughly modern, got all the technology and everything that you want, and yet somehow there's still a sense of old schoolness about it. And so there I would say once again that if that's the sort of thing that appeals to you, then this is a car that you need to look at. Reasonably practical, like I said. I mean, just check it out for people that maybe occasionally might feel a little claustrophobic, especially if you're going to sit them in the back. So that might be worth taking your family or your passengers out for a test drive before you decide to go for it. But other than that, and up front here, that really isn't an issue. But other than that, I think, yeah, thumbs up. I think this is a really good car, really good job. Again, like I said, if you do have an issue with that, then you may want to look at the SUV version, which is CX-30, which I didn't really find that much of an issue with. So, but I guess that car is more family orientated, and this car is more sort of young family orientated or couple orientated, I suppose. That's more where it would be pitched at. So overall then, a thumbs up. I think it's really good. I hope you enjoyed that review. Let me know what you think about the car. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll catch you in the next one. A big thank you to my top tier patron and sponsor, Jay Williams over Air Technic. Check out their shop for brakes, exhaust, body kits, and of course, suspension. Plus, thanks to Muhammad Ali Ahmed and Tom Conway Gordon, who are both tier 4 patrons. And of course, all of these guys for also subscribing to my Patreon account and contributing so much towards helping me to continue creating this content. Join them over at patreon.com/browncarguy. And of course, make sure that you are subscribing, liking, and sharing this channel. Hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any of my videos. And also, check out browncarguy.com and follow me on all social media channels. Just search for my hashtag, which of course is #BrownCarGuy.